On my 18th birthday, my mom gave me a heartbreaking and cruel ultimatum. Either I hand over my inheritance to my stepsister and lose everything that was rightfully mine, or be kicked out of the house forever, leaving me to face the impossible choice that would tear my family apart and change my life in ways I could never have imagined. It was supposed to be a day of celebration. My 18th birthday, a milestone I had looked forward to for as long as I could remember. The day when I would finally be considered an adult, with all the freedom and responsibility that came with it. I had imagined the day filled with laughter, presents, and the feeling of being loved by the people who mattered most: my mom, my friends, and maybe even my stepdad, John. But as I woke up that morning, something felt different. The sun was shining brightly through my bedroom window, but a strange heaviness hung in the air, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I dismissed it, attributing it to the natural jitters that come with big days like this. After all, I was about to step into adulthood, and maybe it was just the weight of that reality settling in. I got ready, pulling on the dress I had picked out weeks ago. It was a simple, flowery thing, nothing extravagant, but I liked the way it made me feel, like I was stepping into something new. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach my eyes. There was something unsettling, like an undercurrent I couldn't escape. When I came downstairs, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, I'd expect some noise, especially from my stepdad, John. He was always the first to break the silence with a cheerful greeting. But today, it felt like the house was holding its breath. I found my mom in the kitchen, her back to me as she prepared breakfast. "Good morning, Mom," I said, trying to sound chipper. She turned slowly, her expression neutral. "Morning," she replied, her voice oddly flat. There was no excitement, no warmth. I'd gotten used to the occasional distance between us lately, but today, it felt sharper. As if there was a wall I couldn't see but could feel. "Happy birthday," she added, without much enthusiasm. I nodded, unsure of what to say. I tried to push away the discomfort building inside me and forced a smile. "Thanks. What's for breakfast?" "Eggs and toast," she answered, but didn't offer any more than that. Her attention seemed to be elsewhere. I could tell she was thinking about something important, but I had no idea what it was. I sat down at the table, hoping the conversation would ease into something more natural, but it didn't. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating, until my stepdad finally walked in. John gave me a wide grin, his usual upbeat energy a stark contrast to the mood in the room. "Hey, birthday girl. How does it feel to finally be 18? I tried to muster the excitement I thought I should feel, but it didn't come. "It feels different," I said, not wanting to sound ungrateful, but also not knowing how to explain the unease that had settled in my chest. "You're officially an adult now," John said, ruffling my hair in his usual playful way. I laughed weakly, but it didn't reach my heart. My thoughts were elsewhere, tangled up in the odd atmosphere that hung over us. Mom placed a plate of eggs in front of me, but she didn't sit down. She stood at the counter, her back to me, stirring something in a pot as if she were lost in thought. "Everything okay, Mom?" I asked, unable to hold back the concern any longer. She didn't turn to face me, but her shoulders tensed. "Yeah, everything's fine," she said curtly. I studied her for a moment, trying to figure out what was wrong, but before I could ask more, my stepdad spoke up. "So, what's the plan for today?" he asked, breaking the silence once again. "Are we doing something special?" I glanced at my mom, hoping for some direction. But instead, she just shrugged, her face unreadable. "We'll see," she muttered. My heart sank. Something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but everything felt off. This wasn't the way I had imagined spending my birthday. But I kept quiet, hoping the day would turn around. Maybe it was just nerves. After all, 18 was a big deal. Maybe Mom was just having a rough morning. But as we ate breakfast in silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting just beneath the surface, ready to explode. I had no idea then how right I was. The day continued in a strange, uncomfortable way. After breakfast, my mom went into the living room to make a few phone calls, and John offered to take me to the park to get some air. It wasn't a bad suggestion. I needed to clear my head. The mood in the house felt stifling, and I was desperate to escape it, even if only for a while. We drove in silence, the sound of the engine humming softly between us. I could feel John glancing at me occasionally, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by something more serious. It was almost like he knew something I didn't. "How are you holding up?" he asked, breaking the silence at last. I glanced over at him, not sure what he meant. "What do you mean?" He cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "It's a big day, you know? Turning 18, becoming an adult, it's a lot to take in. I just want to make sure you're okay." "I'm fine," I said quickly, trying to sound more convincing than I felt. "Just a little tired, I guess." John nodded, but I could see the worry in his eyes. I appreciated the concern, but it wasn't helping the strange knot in my stomach. The air between us felt thick, like we were both dancing around something, avoiding the real issue. When we arrived at the park, I suggested we take a walk to clear our heads, hoping that a bit of movement would ease the discomfort I felt. The park was busy, as usual, with families and couples walking along the paths, kids running around laughing. But despite the cheerful surroundings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. We walked in silence for a while, the crunch of gravel beneath our feet the only sound between us. Then, just as we were passing the playground, John stopped and turned to face me. "Listen, I know things have been a bit tense lately," he said, his voice low. "With you and your mom. And with the way things are going with Em." I cut him off, my heart racing. "What's going on with Emily?" I asked, my voice more forceful than I intended. John seemed taken aback by my tone, but pressed on. "I just want to make sure you understand that your mom is under a lot of pressure right now. She's doing the best she can. And you know how important Emily is to her, right?" The mention of Emily made something inside me twist uncomfortably. Emily, my 20-year-old stepsister, had always been a source of tension between me and my mom. From the moment Mom married John, Emily seemed to have a special place in her heart, a place I was slowly being pushed out of. At first, I told myself it was just because Emily was older, but the more time passed, the clearer it became that my mom was favoring her in ways that felt unfair. "Yeah, I know," I muttered, not wanting to go down that path again. "But it's hard, you know? I felt like I've been losing her for a while." John sighed, looking at me with a mixture of sympathy and concern. "Your mom loves you. She's just caught up in a lot right now. And Emily's having a tough time too. I think you need to be patient with her." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what to say. I loved my mom, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Still, I didn't want to start a fight, not on my birthday. "Thanks, John," I said quietly, forcing a smile. "I'll try." We walked for a little longer, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I couldn't stop thinking about the way Mom had been acting today. It wasn't like her to be so distant. Something was off, and I had a sinking feeling that it wasn't just me being overly sensitive. I knew my mom well enough to tell when something was wrong, and today, she wasn't herself. By the time we returned home, the day had only gotten more suffocating. The atmosphere in the house was thick with unspoken words, and it was clear that my mom was avoiding me. She spent the rest of the afternoon in her room, and I could hear her on the phone, her voice low and hurried. Dinner was a quiet affair. We ate in silence, the sound of forks scraping against plates the only noise breaking the stillness. My stepdad, John, kept glancing at my mom, but he didn't say anything. It was as if we were all waiting for something to happen, but none of us knew what that something was. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my mom stood up from the table, wiping her hands on a napkin. She looked at me, her gaze sharp. "We need to talk," she said, her voice cold. My stomach dropped. I knew this moment had been coming, but I wasn't prepared for it. I followed her into the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. She motioned for me to sit down, and I did, trying to steady my breath. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't respond immediately. She just stood there, staring at the floor for a moment, like she was trying to find the right words. When she finally spoke, her voice was even more distant than before. "You need to understand something," she said slowly. I've made a decision. And you're going to have to make a choice. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I could feel my pulse quicken, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't sure what was coming, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. My mom stood across from me, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, a tense look on her face. "What do you mean?" I asked, though my voice barely sounded like my own. It was shaky, uncertain. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something, and any wrong move would send me tumbling into a chasm I wouldn't be able to climb out of. My mom's eyes narrowed, and for the first time today, I saw something cold in them. It wasn't the warmth and care I had once known. It was something distant, like she was a stranger. "I'm talking about your inheritance," she said, her voice flat, almost devoid of emotion. "The trust your father left for you." My stomach clenched at the mention of my late father. The inheritance had always been a point of tension. When he passed away, I was left with a small fortune, one that my mom had never fully explained, other than that it was meant to ensure I'd be taken care of. But I had never fully understood the details, only that it was mine to inherit once I turned 18. My mind raced as I tried to connect the dots. "What about it?" I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. She let out a long breath, like she was struggling to find the right words. "I know you don't like it, but it's time you accept the reality of things. Your father's money. It's meant to help you, but there's something you need to understand." I felt a sudden wave of nausea. "What are you trying to say?" I whispered, though deep down, I already had a sinking feeling in my gut. She finally met my gaze, her eyes cold and distant. "You have to give it to Emily. The trust, the inheritance, it needs to go to her." I stared at her, unable to comprehend the words. "What?" "No. You're joking, right?" My voice cracked as I spoke, disbelief flooding my veins. She didn't flinch, didn't even seem to care that I was in shock. "I'm not joking. Emily needs it more than you do. You're fine, you don't need it. But she has nothing. And I can't stand by and watch her struggle." I shook my head, my chest tightening with confusion and anger. "But this is mine. It's my father's money. He left it to me." My voice rose in frustration. "Why would I give it to her? She's not even related to me by blood." "That doesn't matter." My mom's voice was sharp now, cutting through the air. "She's family, and she needs help. You're an adult now. You can handle yourself. I'm not asking you to give up everything, just what's rightfully hers." I opened my mouth to protest, but no words came. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was the woman who had always told me to stand up for what was right, to fight for what I deserved. And now she was telling me to give it all up, to hand over the one thing that had been my security, my future. "This is not fair," I finally managed to say, my voice low and trembling. "You can't just take it from me and give it to her. I've worked for this. I've waited for this. And now you want me to just give it to her?" My mom's expression hardened, and I saw something in her eyes that made my blood run cold, something that reminded me how far apart we had grown, how much things had changed. "You don't understand," she said quietly, her tone almost sorrowful. "If you don't do this, if you don't help Emily, then I can't support you anymore." My heart dropped. "What are you saying?" I whispered, afraid to hear the answer. She took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she folded them in front of her. "If you refuse, I will have no choice but to kick you out. You won't have a place here anymore. You'll be on your own." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground beneath me had been pulled away, leaving me suspended in midair. My thoughts scrambled as I tried to process what she was saying. My own mother, threatening to kick me out. To disown me. For money. For Emily. I wanted to shout. I wanted to scream and demand that this wasn't happening. But no words came. I just sat there, frozen, trying to make sense of the chaos that was suddenly my life. She watched me, her eyes never leaving mine, waiting for me to speak, waiting for my decision. I shook my head, my voice barely a whisper. "I can't do that. It's my inheritance. You can't just take it from me and give it to her. I've worked my whole life for this. I deserve it." Her eyes softened for a split second, a flicker of something, regret, maybe, but then she quickly masked it. "It's not about you. It's about what's right." You'll understand in time. I felt like the walls were closing in around me. I wanted to stand up, to walk away, to scream until my throat burned, but I didn't. I couldn't. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. "This is your choice," she said, her voice final, devoid of any warmth or comfort. "Give it to Emily or leave." I could hardly breathe, let alone think straight. But in that moment, a part of me, something deep inside, knew that this wasn't just about money. It was about control, about manipulation. It was about testing how far I would go to keep the family together. But I wasn't sure I could make that sacrifice. Not for her. Not for Emily. The silence that followed felt like a crushing weight on my chest. I sat there motionless, my thoughts spinning in every direction, but never landing on anything clear. The ultimatum my mom had given me, give up my inheritance or leave, felt like a nightmare. The cruel simplicity of it tore through everything I had believed about family and loyalty. I couldn't understand how this was happening. My mother, the one person I had always turned to, the one person who had promised to support me no matter what, was giving me a choice that would tear us apart. I thought of all the birthdays, the holidays, the little moments that had seemed so perfect when we were together as a family. But now, all of that seemed like a lie. It was as if everything had been leading up to this moment, to this unbearable choice. I opened my mouth to say something, anything to make it stop, but no words came. My throat felt tight, and the world around me seemed to spin faster with each passing second. It was almost as if I was being pushed toward a precipice, and the only way out was to jump. "I can't," I whispered at last, my voice breaking as I spoke. "I can't give it to her, Mom. You know it's wrong." Her face didn't change. There was no anger, no sadness, just a cold, resolute expression that made my heart drop even further. "It's not wrong," she said, her voice firm. "You just don't understand yet. This is for the best. You're an adult now. You have to start making hard choices." The tears threatened to spill from my eyes, but I held them back, not wanting to show weakness. Not wanting her to see how much this was hurting me. "I'm your daughter. I thought you loved me. I thought you would support me, no matter what." My words were barely a whisper, but they felt like the truth that had been buried beneath the surface for so long. "I do love you," she said softly, though her words didn't match the coldness in her voice. "But this is bigger than just us. This is about what's right for everyone." I felt a bitter laugh bubble up in my throat, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't right. This wasn't fair. I had spent so many years trying to please her, to prove that I was worthy of her love and approval. But now I was being told that none of it mattered. Emily, the stepsister I barely knew, was the one who deserved everything. She was the one who needed the money, the one who needed my inheritance to secure her future. And I, her own flesh and blood, was supposed to give it all away without question. "I can't do this," I said, more firmly now, standing up from the couch. "I can't give it to her, and I won't leave. I won't let you do this to me. You can't make me choose between you and my father's legacy. I won't choose." My mom didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just stood there, her arms crossed, as if she had already made up her mind and was waiting for me to come to terms with it. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. "I know this is hard," she said after a long pause. "But you'll see. One day, you'll understand why I had to do this. Why Emily needed it. Why I had to make this decision. But why can't you just love me for who I am?" I asked, my voice breaking again. "Why does it have to be about money? Why does it have to be about Emily?" "Because it's not just about love, honey. It's about family. And family needs to stick together, especially when things get hard." I looked at her, my heart aching with every word she spoke. But deep down, I knew something was broken. I couldn't look at my mom and see the woman I had always admired. This wasn't the mother I had grown up with. This was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I pushed it down. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. "Okay," I said, my voice cold, a finality in it that surprised even me. "I'll leave." Her eyes flickered with something surprise, maybe? Regret? But it was too late. The damage had already been done. The rift between us was wide enough now that no amount of words could bridge it. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice softening for a brief moment. I nodded. "Yes, I'm sure." I walked out of the living room, my head spinning, my heart shattering. I had no idea where I was going or what I was going to do, but I couldn't stay here. Not after everything she had said. I couldn't stay in a place where my own mother was willing to choose money over me. I grabbed my jacket from the hallway, my hands shaking as I slid it on. As I walked toward the door, I could hear her voice behind me, calling my name, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. I stepped out into the night, the cool air biting at my skin as I closed the door behind me. I had no idea what the future held, but in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay in a house that no longer felt like home. I couldn't stay with people who had shown me that, when it came down to it, I didn't matter. I was alone. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I could trust. But I had no choice now but to figure it out for myself.